Justin Tomlinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a real pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Birkenhead. Widely respected, thoughtful comments, sometimes difficult for the government, sometimes difficult for the opposition, but always comments that we should all take heed of and listen very, very carefully. And this debate nearly passed me by until I saw a quote within the report which said, an economy that is skewed towards baby boomers and against millennials. And that sort of panicked me. And it panicked me because we all have our own calling into politics. And I went to a school, bottom of the league tables in Kidderminster. My father died at an early age, and many of my friends didn't fulfil their potential. And I was always driven that everybody can be successful if given the right opportunity, if equipped with the right skills, sometimes the right luck, but the right support, the right direction. And all too many people, very, very good friends of mine, didn't take that path and have missed out. That's bad for them, it's bad for the economy, it's bad for society. And I looked at this quote and I worried, because to me it was one versus the other, rather than the core principle that we have a duty to do our very best by everybody. And I know a lot of people will focus their comments on the triple lock. Is it right? Are we doing too much for pensioners? Should we be doing it in a different way? And I would just gently say, because I wish to focus my comments on the younger generation, that I think we all did welcome the triple lock. There'd been a long time where perhaps we had underserved those who had worked hard all of their life. And I would just urge caution that once you get to the age to get your pension, you are limited with your opportunities to change your circumstances. You've either fulfilled your potential or there isn't really much more opportunity to do that. And therefore, you've reached that finish line. And I know the Honourable Member for Birkenhead talked about that finishing line. And we do have to respect that, therefore, their incomes are predominantly fixed and we have to do our best by them. But I'm... Yeah.
Very grateful, Honourable Friend, for giving way. And I think there's a lot in the report that I would recommend to him. But does he, like me, share slightly a concern? We mustn't allow our thoughts on long-term pensions to be coloured by a particular cohort of pensioners retiring right now, that 10 and 15 years' time defined benefit schemes will have gone, and people may be in a much worse position than those who are actually retiring this year or the next few.
And I thank the Honourable Friend for that intervention. And I'm very grateful that we have a fantastic Pensions Minister who will be responding to this debate and will no doubt comment in detail on that point. And we have to. But the broader point is, as I now turn to the opportunities for younger people, is we all collectively have a responsibility as a government, as oppositions, to recognise that we have a habit of spending more money than the tax revenue that we get in. I think since the Second World War, there has only been 6 years where the government of the day have spent less money than they have collected. Now, what that really means, in plain English, is we, as that generation of that year, wish to have more than we can afford, and we would like our children, or maybe our children's children, to then pay for the privilege of that. And that's all governments, because that's affected everybody bar those 6 years. For whatever reason, the government of that day were able to collect in more tax revenue. And we have a duty, a moral duty, a responsibility to future generations to not always take that easy decision. I was doing a radio interview yesterday, a relatively contentious issue, and it was talking about additional costs that the government might wish to spend. And there was another MP, and they said, well, if I was the minister, I'd have just taken the hit. But the key was, it wasn't they that would have taken the hit, it is everybody. And as we're already spending more money than we're collecting in, what they're really saying is, I'm just going to pass that one as well to the next generation. Now, we all know that, and we all would like to be able to balance the books immediately, but also we have a very long list of our own personal priorities we'd like to spend money on. Our inboxes are full of helpful requests from residents on where we could spend more money on them, and many of those are very, very important, and it is always a balance. But I just wanted to gently remind the House that we should not lose sight of the fact that if we wish to give the very best opportunities to the next generations, we need to not saddle them with too much of our overspending. But I am inherently, Madam Deputy Speaker, a very positive person, and I believe that if we do equip people, we do give people that opportunity, they will seize it with both hands and they will make a huge success. So I am greatly encouraged that our government has delivered 1.8 million more good or outstanding school places. And as I said, as somebody who went to a school bottom of the league tables, I understand that importance of equipping people with those skills going forward. And in my constituency, across Swindon, we've had a difficult Ofsted report recently, and we've got fantastic teachers, head teachers, governors who are all trying their very best in Swindon. We've secured extra funding for our schools, but we aren't quite there yet. And we all, the government, MPs, the council, the schools collectively, the parents, we all have to look and see what more can be done. And I'm encouraged that the school minister visited recently. He visited two of my local schools, Nova and Swindon Academy, both transforming the opportunities for their children, both coming from, not so long ago, very difficult and very poor ratings, frankly failing the children that were relying on them to equip them. And they have both transformed their ratings through strong leadership. And I'm delighted that yesterday Ofsted confirmed that Nova had moved to good in all categories. And I pay credit to Mr Barton, the head teacher, and all of his staff who worked incredibly hard to do that. And this is the fundamental building block to equip young people to then take on life. But I'm also a huge fan of the National Citizen Service. This is a new initiative that's been brought forward that, in effect, gives young adults those real tangible life skills. And every summer, without fail, I go and visit every single stage of the 3 to 4 week programme, where they take a random collection of young people. And it's about £1,500 worth of activities, where they will go away for a week to learn team building skills. They will then come back, they will form teams where they will choose a charity, they'll learn about that charity, they'll then organise entrepreneurial activities to fundraise for that charity. They'll go and volunteer in that charity to see it firsthand. They'll have to do presentation skills, they'll have to do haggling, engaging, and at the end of the day, they then graduate as these NCS students, and there is an incredible transformation in all of those young adults who've arrived well educated by the schools, but perhaps not quite ready for the workplace. And as somebody, and I ran my own business for 10 years and I employed a lot of young people, to see the huge difference in those young adults who had taken the time over their summer holiday, where it's very tempting to do many other less constructive things over the summer, to go and do that, to go and engage, and they have given themselves the very best opportunity when entering into the workplace. We've continued to see university numbers increase, but rightly, the government has put a huge emphasis on apprenticeships. Because for generations, governments and opposition parties, we had an arms race on students going to university. Every general election, well, we've sent 25%, well, we'd send 30%, we'd do a third, we'd do 45%, we'll break the 50%. And what we have to do is make sure everybody, and everybody has got a talent. I mean, I look at, say, David Beckham, not renowned for being academically gifted, but he has a gift that's earned more money in a week than probably the majority of people in society will earn at any point. And it was because somebody recognised his skill and they allowed him to develop that. Now, this applies, we all have. I'm sure sometimes, actually, every time I failed to make it onto the sports teams, I did wonder if I did ever have a talent. Perhaps that's why I'm here. But everybody does have a talent. And the apprenticeships rightly recognises, through work-based learning, you can provide people with real, tangible skills, with a fantastic opportunity to secure a long-term career with good career prospects that are also vital for our growing economy, particularly where we have those skills gaps. And in the last Parliament, we had the commitment of 2 million. We've met that. In this Parliament, we rightly have identified an even more ambitious target, and it will be tough to get there. But rightly, you need those challenging targets. And I've spent, and I'm sure all members of this House have spent, a lot of time meeting with those young apprentices, doing things that I have absolutely no idea. Advanced engineering, all these computing things. Brilliant, brilliant careers. Their first rung on the ladder, and they will all go on be a huge success. And across the economy, this government has now delivered record employment. 2.7 million people more in work than when we came to office in 2010. And this isn't just London or the South East, which we've seen in previous strong economic performances. This is every single region of the country. In my own town of Swindon. 8,400 more people are in work. That is greater than the number who are currently going on a weekly basis to see Swindon Town bravely fighting the relegation battle. And thankfully, we've got a bit closer with the victory at the weekend. That we now have 865,000 fewer workless households. Youth unemployment is at the lowest since 2005. In fact, in Swindon, because I know people are keen to know how well we're doing there, and this element, it is down 69.2% since 2010. That is a fantastic achievement. Rightly, the government has introduced the national living wage, looking at a wage of around about £9 plus by 2020, helping 6 million of the lowest earners have a pay rise, sharing in the proceeds of the strong economic growth that we have delivered. The increases in the personal tax threshold have taken the 3.2 million lowest earners out of paying any income tax at all. And we are continuing to raise that personal income tax to £12,500, and then it will be index linked, making sure those lowest earners will never return to a point of paying income tax again. Yes.
My honourable friend is making an excellent speech based on his expertise as a former minister. We share something in common in that our towns and cities, Swindon and Peterborough, are the two largest conurbations in the UK without a university, unfortunately, or that was created from the beginning. Does he agree with me in that respect? It's important that we build on apprenticeships, for instance, with university technical colleges, so that young people who are not of an academic bent can be persuaded to go and pursue a technical and vocational education, which is so important for the future economy.
I thank my honourable friend for the powerful intervention, and he's a real champion for his constituency. And on the point about universities, in my constituency, we benefit from having a huge influx of graduates. So we benefit from the network of local universities within striking distance of Swindon, which is why we've been seeing such strong economic growth in our area. But he's absolutely right to highlight the importance of university technical colleges. We had one of the first ones opened, a £10 million facility in Swindon. It's had its teething problems, but the principle is fantastic because it is identifying those people who would ultimately be doing advanced engineering, technical work, and giving them a real focus on that and working with local businesses who will help shape that curriculum where there are the skills gaps in the local economy, which means they have the very best chance of having a career at the end of it. The challenge, though, with university technical colleges is how you attract the very best, the most able students for that type of education at 14, because not unsurprisingly, schools, and they're all judged by league tables, are not always brilliantly keen to encourage their most able students to transfer, because that will have a detrimental effect on their league tables. And one of the things I would urge the schools minister to consider in this area is perhaps you have a dual score going into the league tables where the student still remains attributed to the original school and it's shared then with the UTC. Therefore, there isn't that disincentive to then lose some of those best students, and therefore there will be the opportunity to say, look, they're doing great, but they can do even greater with that type of specialist education. And absolutely on that point of apprenticeships, as I've talked about, it is making a huge difference. Now, not everybody has that opportunity to walk straight into work. And therefore, as a society, we have a duty to make sure that our job centre network is at its most able to support people. And I had, whilst I wasn't the minister responsible during my time in DWP, we had a lot of joint meetings, and I got very excited about the need to refresh our job centre network. I'd been on a number of visits, and I was fundamentally depressed when I saw the 1960s, 70s concrete structures, the security guard, who understandably is needed. But imagine you're going to a job centre, you're almost certainly nervous, and to be greeted by a security guard, bleak surroundings, not celebrating the successes, not highlighting the people who've gone through exactly the same challenges that you fear, that you know you have to overcome, and they have similar circumstances to you, they haven't celebrated that. And I went on a separate visit to a Shaw Trust community hub, helping a number of people who are far away from entering the workplace. And they had bright colours, great furniture, The security guards had a different uniform, so he was a welcomer. So as soon as you arrived, you were made to feel special, congratulated that you had taken that step and that he was there to be your anchor throughout the whole of that process. And it was a real hub of activity. So even I could see these nervous people coming up into this building, and as soon as they met with him, that was it. They were at their ease, and then they entered into that process, and they were keen to engage, keen to fulfil their potential. And I'm delighted that the government has now rolled this out. And I went on a visit to the Swindon Job Centre a few weeks back, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And I was greeted by the senior staff. And this was the first thing they were most excited to tell me about. They only had a budget of about £3,000 for their job centre, but they'd painted the walls, changed the furniture around, changed the way the entrance worked, provided workstations for people to work on computers who were then looking independently for jobs after their support. And the staff were so excited. It had transformed their morale. It had transformed the engagement from the people they were looking to work with. They then were keen to talk to me about what a difference universal credit is making, simplifying an incredibly complex benefit system. Under the old benefit system of something like 167 benefits, you needed to be a nuclear physicist to be able to work out what people were or weren't entitled to. And all too often, through our casework, we would discover our constituents, because of the complex system, were missing out on support that they should have been entitled to. So everybody supports the principle of a simplified single benefit through universal credit that has the principle that you will always be better off the more you work, removing the ridiculous 16-hour cliff edge that prevented people from progressing from part-time work to full-time work, to a frustration of employers, to frustration of people whose circumstances were changing and they were wishing to build up. And crucially, for the first time through the real-time technology, allowing people with fluctuating health conditions to have a minimum income. And as their health condition goes up and down, the system automatically kicks in, rather than having to constantly reapply, going through complicated bureaucracy when you want to be focusing on dealing with your health challenges, dealing with remaining in work or progressing in work. And I'm really excited about, again, often it's the simple things that make the biggest difference, because for the first time we have a named work coach. And this makes a huge difference because, again, as you arrive there, you aren't just looking for work. You have a number of other challenges that you may wish to navigate. That could be getting childcare, getting additional training, obviously the direct help with looking for work. And that named coach will help you through that process, giving you significantly more time to concentrate on actually looking for the work that you would like. But also, for the first time ever, this named work coach will stay with you when you enter into work. And this will make a huge difference. Many of us, if we look back at our own careers, were probably driven mostly by our parents encouraging us to progress, encouraging us to not be complacent, encouraging us to push ourselves. Now, that isn't a given in life. And a lot of people, and I saw this again when I was at school, it was a given for a lot of people that they had no interest in going to work. And that was a shame, because these were brilliant people, and with the right encouragement, they could have made huge successes themselves. So often you'll see people will enter, particularly people who've been out of work for a long period of time, will then enter into work, but they'll enter at the lowest wage. And sometimes those people will then stagnate at there and not have the confidence to then kick on to higher levels. So an example would be, I've been out of work for a long period of time. I've secured a work at a supermarket. I'm determined to make this a success. So I turn up every single day, I work my hours, I work diligently, and then I stay there. But then now the named work coach would contact me and say, how's it going? I said, look, for the last 3 months, I've turned up every day, I've worked as hard as I possibly can. And the named work coach might say, well, have you thought about asking to become the supervisor now? Well, I would be too shy to do that. No problem. So the named work coach would then talk to the supervisors, the managers in the store, and say, would he now be ready to take that step up? And therefore, they help you progress within that workplace, because it is great that we've got 2.7 million more people in work. It is great that we've introduced the national living wage, which has helped the 6 million lowest earners get a pay rise. But the next challenge as we move close to full structural employment is to make sure there is the support for in-work progression, so that, again, everybody can not just get a job, but fulfil their potential. And by working hard, they can then progress through those organisations.
Just coming back to the subject of the debate today on intergenerational fairness bit, he's made some very good points about working issues. In terms of those who've retired or those who are working but are due a pension, does he agree with me that one of the key issues is not only intergenerational fairness, but actually fairness between people who own and run companies and have got responsibilities towards people in pension schemes, and that the news today is a good example of how this place can help secure the best outcomes for those who are promised pensions in a not very rich retirement world?
I thank the honourable friend for his intervention. I'm always at a loss as to why he is not a minister. He's one of our most able MPs who, in the debates time and time again that I've attended, he is so thoughtful. And I had a brilliant time as a minister visiting his constituency, seeing the great work that he had done to help promote apprentices ahead of when it became really fashionable and all of us started campaigning for greater apprenticeships, always ahead of the curve. And rightly, his intervention highlights how we have to look at all of those ages, those opportunities. As somebody who was an employer myself, I understand the responsibility to your staff in terms of pensions and other benefits, career progression. And as ever, a powerful point.
Well, before he finishes, on a positive note, will he also agree with my honourable friend, agree with me that it's so important that we have done everything we can to remove the badge of shame in the way we've treated disabled people who want to work, and that the Disability Confident programme, which he was very much involved with at the Department for Work and Pensions, is growing from strength to strength so that more disabled people who shouldn't be put in the shadows, who should be allowed to fulfil their potential, are able to do so in the employment market.
I thank my honourable friend, and I know that he personally supported the Disability Confident campaign, and that will be my very final part. I'm just coming to that, so if you can just hold on a few more seconds, because the last thing that the staff at the Job Centre highlighted was the great initiative of the school advisors from the Job Centre going into the schools and starting to identify those who would need help at an earlier stage and working with them ready for their final day in education to then have that smooth transition, and they're very excited about the early stages of that. And I'm delighted that the small employment offer that was a pilot that I introduced is making a real difference in getting more businesses to engage directly with the job centres, which are now hubs of activity, creating more potential vacancies for those who are still looking for work. And in conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, it would be amiss for me not to talk about the additional opportunities that are now created for disabled people as the former Disability Minister, because on all of the visits I ever did, the most passion I saw from people, my favourite game was to say, "You are the Minister, what would you do?" to anybody I ever met. I was always looking for good ideas. And without a shadow of a doubt, the most passionate, the most enthusiastic, most engaged cohort of people I talked to were young disabled people who wanted to have exactly the same chances and opportunities as their friends. These were highly talented, often highly educated, brilliant young people where not all employers had the confidence to consider offering them an opportunity. And nearly always, the employer would just need to make a relatively small change and they would benefit. And I did, as an employer, by accident, not looking for a halo. I employed people with disability almost by accident, and it made a huge difference. So I welcome the fact that 600,000 more disabled people are in work over the last 3 years. I welcome the fact that the government is committed to delivering the disability apprenticeships. These are real opportunities, predominantly for that younger generation. And I welcome this report, but I urge everybody to remember it isn't them versus us. It is we have a duty to do our best by all ages, and I very much hope the government will continue its good work in this area.